In 1996, a drug went on sale in America. It was legal, doctor-prescribed, FDA-approved. The company behind it told physicians it was safe, that addiction was rare, that the risk of dependency was less than 1%. They knew that was a lie. Over the next 25 years, that drug and its successors killed over 500,000 Americans, more than the entire U.S. death toll of World War II. The family behind it became billionaires. Then they put their name on museums. The Metropolitan Museum of Art, the Louvre, the Guggenheim, the Tate Modern, the British Museum. Their name was carved into marble, printed in gold, displayed to millions of visitors who had no idea what funded the donation. Their name is Sackler, and this is the story of how one family caused the greatest drug crisis in American history and spent decades making sure the world only knew them for their generosity. Chapter 1. The Family Nobody Questioned. The Sackler story did not begin with OxyContin, it began with a blueprint. Arthur Sackler was a psychiatrist and advertiser in 1950s New York. Brilliant, charming, and completely without scruple when it came to selling pharmaceuticals. He pioneered a technique that transformed the drug industry forever, paying doctors directly to promote medications, funding medical journals that published favorable research, and systematically blurring the line between independent science and paid advocacy. The American Medical Association later called his tactics the most aggressive pharmaceutical marketing campaign ever seen in the United States. Arthur died in 1987, before OxyContin existed, but the infrastructure he built passed directly to his brothers Mortimer and Raymond, and then to their children. Find a drug, fund the science, own the doctors. That was the Sackler method, and it worked every time they used it, until the drug they chose was one of the most addictive substances ever manufactured. There is a document from inside Purdue Pharma, the Sackler family's private pharmaceutical company, that was sealed by a court for over a decade. What it reveals about how the family marketed OxyContin is something most people still have not seen. We will get to it. Visa had built the road everyone needed. The Sacklers had built something different, a machine for manufacturing demand. And in 1995, they found the product they had been waiting for. Chapter 2. The drug that changed everything. In 1995, Purdue Pharma submitted OxyContin to the FDA for approval. OxyContin was oxycodone, a powerful opioid painkiller. Not new, not revolutionary. Opioids had existed for centuries. What Purdue claimed was new was how it worked. They told the FDA, and then every doctor in America, that OxyContin's time-release formula made it less addictive than other opioids. That the slow delivery of the drug into the bloodstream meant patients would feel pain relief without the euphoric rush that caused dependency. It was the central selling point. It was not true. Internal Purdue documents revealed later that company executives knew by 1997, just 1 year after launch, that OxyContin was being crushed and snorted by patients to bypass the time-release mechanism entirely. They knew the drug was being abused. They knew people were becoming dependent. They increased the sales force anyway. By 2001, Purdue had over 900 sales representatives calling on doctors across America, more than double the number at launch. Each representative was trained to minimize addiction concerns. Each was paid bonuses based on how many prescriptions their assigned doctors wrote. In 2001 alone, Purdue paid out $40 million in sales bonuses. Your doctor was not receiving independent medical advice. Your doctor was receiving a sales pitch from someone whose bonus depended on the signature at the bottom of the prescription pad. There is one internal Purdue training document, nicknamed the OxyContin Conversion Guide, that instructed sales representatives on exactly how to persuade doctors already prescribing competitors' opioids to switch their patients directly to OxyContin. It treated human beings in chronic pain as a market to be captured. That document existed for years before anyone outside the company saw it. The machine was running. The prescriptions were climbing. And somewhere in a boardroom in Stamford, Connecticut, the Sackler family was watching the profits arrive. So Chapter 3. The money. Between 1996 and 2019, Purdue Pharma generated approximately $35 billion in revenue from OxyContin. The Sackler family extracted over $11 billion of that in personal distributions. Money moved directly out of the company into family accounts, trusts, and offshore structures across multiple countries. That number matters for one specific reason. When Purdue Pharma eventually faced litigation, when thousands of lawsuits from states, cities, hospitals, and families began closing in, the company claimed it did not have sufficient funds to pay meaningful compensation to victims. The money was already gone. Court documents filed in the Purdue bankruptcy proceedings revealed that the Sackler family had been warned by lawyers as early as 2007 that litigation risk was growing. In the years that followed, as overdose deaths climbed past 100,000 annually and lawsuits multiplied across 48 states, the pace of distributions from Purdue to the family did not slow. It accelerated. Between 2008 and 2018 alone, the family extracted over $10 billion from the company, structured in ways that made legal clawback nearly impossible under existing bankruptcy law, moved before the courts could reach it. This was not an accident. And while the money moved, the name went up. Midpoint Hook, 430 Mark. The Sackler family donated hundreds of millions to cultural institutions across the world. The Sackler Wing at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, the Sackler Gallery at the Smithsonian, the Sackler Center at the Victoria and Albert Museum in London, the Serpentine Sackler Gallery, named spaces at Oxford, at Harvard, at the Louvre in Paris. The museums accepted the money without question. The names went on the walls, and while those walls were being carved, in the towns and counties those same institutions serve, people were dying in numbers not seen since the AIDS epidemic. In 2018, a Sackler family spokesperson was asked directly whether the family felt any responsibility for the opioid crisis. The response was a single prepared statement: Purdue Pharma and its employees, including the Sacklers, have acted responsibly and ethically. That statement was issued in a year when 68,000 Americans died of opioid overdoses. Every gallery visit, every school trip standing in front of a Sackler-funded exhibit, paid for in part by the profits from a drug that was killing people in towns those same visitors drove home to. The family believed philanthropy was armor. One woman decided to test that theory. Chapter 4. The Reckoning Begins. In 2018, photographer and activist Nan Goldin walked into the Sackler wing of the Guggenheim Museum in New York. She and her group dropped thousands of fake prescription slips from the balcony into the atrium below. They fell like snow onto the visitors standing beneath the Sackler name. The image went around the world. Goldin had been prescribed OxyContin following a wrist injury in 2014. She became addicted within weeks. She later said she was lucky to survive. Millions were not. Her organization, Pain Prescription Addiction Intervention Now, began targeting Sackler-named institutions directly. Protests inside museums, public pressure campaigns, letters to boards of trustees. One by one, the institutions cracked. The Tate removed the Sackler name in 2019. The Guggenheim followed. The Metropolitan Museum of Art, which had accepted over $9 million from the family, announced it would accept no further Sackler donations. The Louvre quietly removed the Sackler name from its wing the same year. The marble nameplates started coming down. But a name coming off a wall is not accountability. In 2007, over a decade before any museum acted, Purdue Pharma and 3 of its executives had already pleaded guilty to federal charges of misbranding OxyContin, deliberately misrepresenting the drug's addiction risk to doctors and patients. The company paid $600 million in fines. Not one member of the Sackler family was charged. Not one. And if you want to understand the other invisible systems quietly running your financial life, subscribe. New video every 2 weeks. The next one is already in the works. Chapter 5. The Documents. In September 2019, Purdue Pharma filed for bankruptcy. It was a legal strategy as much as a financial one. Bankruptcy protection allowed the company to consolidate thousands of lawsuits into a single proceeding and potentially extend liability protection to Sackler family members who had never declared bankruptcy themselves. What the bankruptcy proceedings unlocked through court-ordered document disclosure was something the family had spent decades keeping sealed. Internal emails, board minutes, sales directives going back to the earliest days of OxyContin, One email from Richard Sackler, son of Raymond, and the driving force behind OxyContin's launch and aggressive marketing, written in 2001 as the addiction crisis was becoming impossible to ignore, read this: "We have to hammer on the abusers in every way possible. They are the culprits and the problem. They are reckless criminals. Not the drug, not the marketing, not the 900 sales representatives, not the $40 million in annual bonuses paid to push prescriptions higher. The victims. The documents showed a family that knew, that chose, that extracted, and that when finally confronted with the human cost of those choices, looked at the people dying and called them criminals." In 2022, a federal judge rejected the original bankruptcy settlement, which had offered Sackler family members broad immunity from future civil lawsuits in exchange for contributing approximately $4.5 billion. The judge ruled it was unconstitutional to grant civil immunity to individuals who had not themselves declared bankruptcy. The legal fight continued. In 2023, a revised settlement was reached. The family agreed to pay approximately $6 billion in total, without the sweeping immunity they had originally sought. $6 billion from a family that extracted 11 from a crisis that killed 500,000 people. The maths is not difficult. The Sackler story is, on its surface, a story about greed, a family that built a company on a lie, that extracted billions while people died, that spent those billions buying the most respectable name in the world and nearly got away with it. But here is the part that should sit with you longer than the anger. The Sackler family did not corrupt the American healthcare system. They found it already open, and they used it. The FDA that approved OxyContin on the basis of the company's own research, the doctors who accepted the sales visits without question, the medical journals that published studies funded by the manufacturer, the bankruptcy courts that nearly let the family walk with legal immunity intact. None of those institutions failed because of one family. They failed because they were built to trust money, and the Sacklers simply had more of it than anyone expected. 500,000 people are dead. The family is still worth billions. And the system that made it possible, the one that allows a pharmaceutical company to fund its own safety research, train its own sales force to call directly on prescribing doctors, and extract profits faster than lawsuits can follow, that system has not been dismantled. It is still running. The names came off the museum walls. The walls are still standing. Most people, when they hear the full arc of this story, the marketing, the documents, the philanthropy, the immunity deals, land in one of two places. Drop yours in the comments. I want to know which one. And if you want to understand the other invisible systems quietly running your financial life, subscribe. New video every 2 weeks. The next one is already in the works.